I still remember that night. Not because anything loud happened, not because someone shouted or slammed a door, but because of the silence. The kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. The kind that sits on your chest and makes your thoughts echo louder than they should. He was sitting right in front of me, close enough that I could see the tiny lines near his eyes, the ones I used to trace with my fingers when we laughed together. Same face, same voice, same smile, and yet something felt missing, like a familiar song playing with one note slightly off. His eyes didn't meet mine for long. Every few seconds, his phone vibrated on the table, face down, and each time it did, his fingers moved without him realizing it. Just a small twitch. Most people wouldn't notice something like that. But when you love someone deeply, when your heart has learned their habits, you notice even the smallest changes. I asked him a simple question, the kind couples ask without thinking. "How was your day?" "Busy," he said quickly. "Just work." The answer came too fast, too clean, like he had practiced it. I nodded and smiled back, pretending I believed him, pretending I didn't feel that quiet warning rising inside me. Sometimes the truth doesn't crash into your life, sometimes it knocks softly, and we pretend we didn't hear it. That night, when he turned away from me and fell asleep, I stared at the ceiling. My heart felt calm, but my mind refused to rest. Questions circled endlessly. When did we stop talking the way we used to? When did his laughter stop reaching his eyes? When did I start feeling alone even when he was right beside me? I didn't know it then, but that was the last peaceful night of my old life. Because once doubt takes root, it doesn't stay small. And what he had done behind my back wasn't just a mistake, it wasn't just a moment of weakness. It was betrayal wrapped in comfort, hidden behind a smile I trusted. Before all of this, there was a time when love felt safe, a time when his name on my phone made me smile instead of tighten my chest. We didn't meet in a dramatic way. There was no grand moment, no instant connection that felt like a movie scene. We met quietly, through people we both knew, through conversations that started casually and slowly grew deeper. He listened when I spoke, really listened. He remembered small things like how I liked my tea, how I preferred quiet evenings, how loud places made me anxious. When I doubted myself, he would hold my hands and say, "I'm here. You don't have to do everything alone." And I believed him. I trusted him in a way that felt natural, effortless. Our days fell into a rhythm, morning messages that made waking up easier, evening calls that made long days feel shorter, weekends that felt like small promises of a future we were building together. People around us noticed. They said we were lucky, that we balanced each other, that we looked happy. And maybe that's why I ignored the first signs when things began to change. The changes were small at first. Replies that came later than usual, plans that were canceled at the last moment, conversations that felt rushed. Every time I asked, he had an explanation ready. Work stress, family pressure, plans for our future. And every time I chose to believe him. Trust doesn't break in one moment. It wears down slowly, quietly, like water dripping on stone. You don't notice it at first, but one day you look back and realize something has shifted. One evening, he told me he was going out with friends. I didn't question it. Why would I? But later that night, while scrolling without much thought, I saw a photo posted online, a group picture. Everyone he mentioned was there, except him. I told myself not to overthink. Maybe he arrived late. Maybe he left early. The next day, I casually mentioned one of the friends he said he met. For just a moment, he paused. Half a second, but it was enough. Then he smiled and said, "Oh yeah, they left early." That pause stayed with me. Lies don't always sound wrong. Sometimes they feel wrong. From that day, I started noticing things I had once ignored. His phone never left his hand. He changed his passwords and laughed it off, saying it was for security. If I asked a question, he sometimes turned it back on me. "Why are you checking on me so much? Don't you trust me?" That question hurt more than any argument, because I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe that the distance I felt was just stress, just life. But my heart already knew something my mind wasn't ready to accept. There was a day I almost walked away. I remember standing in front of the mirror, looking at my own reflection and asking myself why I felt so small in a relationship that was supposed to make me feel stronger. I practiced the words in my head. We need to talk. Something doesn't feel right anymore. I imagined saying them calmly, confidently. But when I finally faced him, he smiled. That same familiar smile that had once made me feel safe. He hugged me and said, "Things have been hard, but I promise I'm choosing you." And just like that, my strength faded. I stayed. Sometimes betrayal survives because love is still hoping. What I didn't know then was that while I was trying to fix us, he was already living another story. While I was questioning myself, he was rewriting the truth. While I was loyal, he was building a secret so carefully that he believed it would never come out. But secrets always leave something behind, a shadow, a crack, a clue. And when that clue finally appeared, it didn't come with drama. It didn't arrive in the form of a confession or an argument. It came quietly, on a normal day, in a moment I didn't expect. And the second I noticed it, everything inside me shifted. That was the moment when doubt stopped being a feeling and started becoming something else, something dangerous, something awake. It started with something small, almost meaningless, something that could have been ignored if my heart hadn't already been on edge. He had left his jacket on the chair that morning. That never happened. He was always careful, always organized. I picked it up without thinking, just to hang it properly, and that's when I felt the weight in the pocket. His phone. My first instinct was to put it back. I wasn't that kind of person. I had never checked his phone before. Trust had been the foundation of everything we built. But my hand froze. My heart started beating faster, not because I had found something, but because of what I felt in that moment. Fear. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind that whispers, "What if you're right?" The screen lit up when I touched it. No password. That alone felt strange. He had been so protective of it lately. A notification banner slid across the screen before it locked again. Just one line. One name I didn't recognize, and a message that read, "I missed last night already." I stared at the screen longer than I should have. My chest felt tight, like the air had been pulled out of the room. I told myself there had to be an explanation, a joke, a misunderstanding, anything but what my mind was already building. I didn't open the phone, not yet. I put it back exactly where I found it. My hands were shaking, but my face stayed calm. That's the strange thing about moments like these. On the outside, life looks normal. On the inside, everything is breaking. When he came back that evening, I watched him differently. Every word, every movement felt louder. When he smiled at me, it didn't reach my heart. When he touched my shoulder, I felt distance instead of comfort. "Is everything okay?" he asked. "Yes," I lied. The word tasted better. That night, I barely slept. My mind replayed the message over and over. I wondered how long it had been going on. I wondered how someone could look at you with love and still hide something like that. Mostly, I wondered if I was strong enough to face the truth. The next few days felt unreal, like I was living inside a glass box, watching my own life from the outside. I noticed patterns I hadn't ignored before. Late nights explained away by work, phone calls taken in another room, a smile when a message came in that wasn't meant for me. One afternoon, he fell asleep on the couch. The phone was on the table again. This time, the screen lit up and stayed on. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would give me away. I stood there for a long moment, arguing with myself. Once you know, you can't unknow. Once you look, there's no going back. I picked it up. My fingers felt numb as I unlocked it. The messages were right there. No hiding, no effort to cover tracks. Dozens of conversations, laughing, flirting, inside jokes I wasn't part of, promises that sounded too familiar. "You make me feel alive. I wish I was with you right now. She doesn't need to know." That last line stayed with me. She doesn't need to know. I realized that I wasn't just being lied to. I was being erased from parts of this life, reduced to a role he could step out of whenever it suited him. There were pictures, too. Nothing graphic, but intimate enough to hurt. Smiles meant for someone else. Moments stolen while I was waiting at home, believing him. I didn't cry right away. Shock has a way of freezing emotion. I scrolled slowly, forcing myself to see everything, because I knew if I stopped, I would find a reason to forgive him again. When he woke up and saw me holding his phone, his face changed. Not confusion, not surprise. Fear. "What are you doing?" he asked. I looked at him and felt something break inside me. "How long?" My voice sounded calm, but it didn't feel like it belonged to me. He sat up, rubbed his face, and sighed like he was tired of a long day. "It's not what you think." Those words, every betrayed person hears them at least once. "Then tell me what it is," I said. He tried to explain, tried to minimize. He said it didn't mean anything. He said it was just talking. He said I was overreacting. At one point, he even said I drove him to it because I had been distant. That's when anger replaced shock. Because betrayal hurts, but blame cuts deeper. "So you chose to lie?" I asked. "You chose to hide?" He didn't answer. Silence filled the space between us again, but this time it wasn't quiet. It was heavy with truth. "I was going to tell you," he finally said. I laughed. A short, broken sound. "When?" "After I found out on my own." He looked away. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake that happened once. This was a pattern, a choice repeated over and over. I walked away from that conversation feeling hollow, not just because he cheated, but because of how easily he justified it, how calmly he stood there while my world collapsed. The days that followed were worse than the discovery, because now everything made sense. Every excuse, every distance, every moment I had blamed myself. He tried to act normal, tried to be extra kind, as if affection could erase betrayal. He cooked dinner, he asked about my day, he touched my hand like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. At night, when he slept, I stared at the wall. My mind replayed scenes from our past, searching for the exact moment he stopped choosing me. I wondered how long I had been sharing my life with someone who wasn't really there. He kept saying he wanted to fix things, that he loved me, that he would stop. But his words felt empty now. Trust, once broken, doesn't return just because someone asks nicely. Then came the moment that hurt more than the messages. I overheard him on the phone one evening, speaking softly in another room. I didn't mean to listen, but my name stopped me. "She suspects something," he said. "I'm handling it." Handling it like I was a problem to manage. That was the moment my sadness turned into clarity. I realized I wasn't dealing with someone who made a mistake. I was dealing with someone who believed he could control the truth. I stopped confronting him after that. I stopped asking questions. On the surface, I became calm, quiet, understanding. I let him believe I was still unsure, still confused, still hoping. Inside, something else was forming. A plan. I started paying attention instead of reacting, listening instead of speaking. I noted times, names, patterns. I watched how confident he became when he thought I was weak, how careless he got when he believed I wouldn't act. He underestimated me, and that was his biggest mistake. Because betrayal doesn't always end in tears. Sometimes it ends in silence, and silence, when chosen, is powerful. I didn't want revenge fueled by anger. I wanted truth. I wanted justice that didn't destroy me in the process. I wanted him to feel exposed, not attacked, to see himself clearly, without excuses. By the time he realized I had changed, it was already too late. Because the conflict wasn't just between us anymore. It was between the lie he lived in and the truth I was preparing to reveal. And soon, very soon, that truth would step into the light.